And at one point, you can be coasting right along, things are great, and then right in the last moment, things can change. And I think having a disability always gives you that sense of perspective. And it's something that I'm very grateful for. And I'm just fortunate that I can be in a position to affect lives in a positive way. And to be that anchor. And in this case, one of two anchors. And it's important to me because I have had a lot of support growing up. I've had a lot of family support and support from, different people, family. And growing up in Scituate, there was not a lot of others in wheelchairs. And now that I'm 26 and I graduated from Stonehill, I feel a responsibility to give back to the community and to improve on past generations and make sure that younger people and future generations of students with challenges in the local communities and school systems, that inclusion and diversity and empowerment are taught in schools, just like somebody would teach math or somebody would teach a language, because I feel like teaching those things are equally, if not more important, to teach kids, because the more that they can be exposed to things, the more that they will be able to understand and appreciate. Because I don't know if Dave wants to save this topic for another podcast, but I'm going to introduce it because I have a good way of explaining it. The number one goal that I've always had when addressing people is getting them to see the difference between sympathy and empathy. And if you don't know what those two words mean, sympathy is when you look at somebody else's situation and you say, oh, I can't imagine going through that, or I can't imagine being in that situation. I'm so glad it's not me. And you kind of feel bad for them. But empathy is creating some sort of shared understanding, so that when somebody says, oh yeah, this is difficult for me, the other person who you're talking to can say, yeah, no, I understand. I understand what you're going through, and we're going to do this together. And that's my goal, is to show people that, even though having a disability is part of me, it doesn't define me, and we can also find common ground to have shared understanding and create empathy, not sympathy, because sympathy has negative connotations, whereas empathy is positive, and people come together and they talk and they share experiences and they gain understanding of people's morals and values, and by the end of it they come out better people, because there's not levels of, okay, I'm above you because I don't have a disability, or I'm above you because I have this ability and you don't. We're all equal. Things just happen in different ways. So that is, something we could talk about in future podcasts. But I wanted to introduce the difference between sympathy and empathy. I don't know if you want to if you want to save that for another podcast, or you think that would be a good thing to talk about.
Just continuing I will go into a little bit of my own experiences, but I have, I've met people and I have friends that not always think, they might not think that they're better than me because, I'm disabled and they're not, but also because they don't have a disability, and I see that they're, struggling and that I'm struggling as well. I've had people tell me, because I've been thinking about, what I could be doing for a career in the near future, and a lot of people are telling me that maybe I should be a guidance counselor, a therapist, just to sit down and talk to people. And to be honest, like I've been thinking about that as well, being like a psychiatrist, like I said, a guidance counselor. But I've seen both sides. Like people enjoy when I try to help them with whatever life challenges are thrown their way. I try to sit down and discuss with them about how they can, strive to be better or make their situation better by telling them my situation and how I overcome. But then I also have friends that are hesitant about talking about how bad they might be having challenges, but they don't believe that they have the right to tell me their story because they look at my situation and be like, oh, he can't walk, he can't play sports and I can, or so I have no right telling him my difficult situation when by just looking at me, he can't do some of the things that I can do. So I've noticed people hesitant in that way. Yes, Jamie?
And I would like to comment on that because that's exactly what I'm talking about. With your situation there, Dave, with some of your friends, and this is actually a very good example because we need some context. Because without context and without explaining what we mean, these topics of sympathy and empathy, they're kind of just empty thoughts. So thank you for providing the context to what I'm trying to explain. So with your friend,
or friends,
yeah, whoever it is, we're all human. We all encounter the same things. And your disability is just a part of you. And if you picture it like an iceberg, like your disability is just the tip of it. And if you're anything like me, all it takes is spending, an afternoon with you, and you quickly find out that Debbie, she is much more than somebody in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates understanding. That creates empathy, because you know what, like, all we want to do, like I keep saying, all we want to do is contribute something of value. All we want to do is feel like we belong. All we want to do is leave the world in a better place than when we found it. And I don't think that has anything to do with disability. I think that if you're really honest with yourself, everybody would like to say, hey, I contributed something. I belong to something. And my disability does not isolate me from the crowd. Because, it's important that all of us are in the middle of everything. All of us are involved, and all of us are contributing. And so I think it's very important that we have these conversations, even though they might be difficult. So, what do you think, Dave?
Yes, and that listening to other people's situations and their challenges, makes me, and me being able to help you try to overcome that situation. Even though I can't walk, it still gives me a sense of accomplishment, and that I've had a lot of people, help me physically, and I might not be able to help you physically, but I might be able to help you have a clearer mindset. So don't feel hesitant to ask us questions, to have us talk about certain topics when we get further along in these. Because I'm an open book. You ask it, I'll answer it to the best of my ability.
And I think that it's important that that you see us as resources, like Dave said, because especially when it comes to topics like disability and challenges, knowledge is power, and if you have knowledge, then you can help us. You can help us help others by taking the things you know about us already, because God knows we're going to be sharing this with our family and friends, but also hopefully it gets shared around so that within our little circles and within the world of social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, however this makes it on social media platforms, is that it has a positive impact. And I know that Dave had mentioned earlier about the sympathy versus empathy thing, but also he talked about asking for help. These three things, sympathy, empathy, and asking for help, they're kind of sort of related. I'm going to explain how these three things are related. And then Dave can follow up if he wants to. Just a quick little housekeeping thing. Dave, how long do you want to go for? Like, do you want to do an hour?
For
How long do you think we should go for? Like, depending on how well people are engaging with us, we should probably go for 45 minutes. So probably
since this is the first one and it's getting late at night, Jamie can certainly continue this, but unfortunately I gotta leave